Welcome to Clothing Culture, a fashion industry podcast at the intersection of technology and innovation. I'm Emily Lane.
And I'm Bret Schnitker. We speak with experts and disruptors who are moving the industry forward.
And discuss solutions to real industry challenges.
Clothing Culture is brought to you by Stars Design Group, a global design and production house with more than 30 years of experience.
Welcome back to another episode of Clothing Culture. Once again, we are in the world headquarters of Stars Design Group, global apparel design and manufacturing firm. And I'm lucky enough to be sitting with the CEO, Bret Schnitker, who is a mover and shaker and innovator of the industry. Welcome back, Bret.
Wow, that's a big intro.
Well, I thought that this conversation would be really wonderful to have with you because Stars Design Group has always been this forward-thinking company, always embracing evolution, always embracing new technologies. And for companies out there that are thinking about ways to either streamline or just improve the quality of their products or services, might be looking to technology to save those answers. So I thought it might be a valuable conversation to have with you to share some of those tips and tricks when thinking about innovating technology and how to ensure it's successful.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think never before has technology been more integrally linked to the fashion business than ever before. And every day, with all the crazy things happening in the world, I think technology finds a way to in many cases, help us through some of the new hurdles that we've got that didn't exist before.
One of those technologies we've spoken quite a bit about throughout various episodes, the implementation of 3D technology. Certainly in this era that's kind of evolved out of COVID, more and more companies are looking to 3D. I know that Stars Design Group was really on the cutting edge of embracing this technology. What led you to look to 3D and specifically Browzwear, the software that we initially selected?
Yeah, briefly, when we're integrating technology into the organization, it's generally to help process and also help the client. And in this case, from a design perspective, we felt that, we had started 15 years ago in virtually real 2D design. So we think that the client got a very good visualization of whatever design project we were working on for them. But in some cases, it just wasn't enough. And, I think we started with Browzwear 9-10 years ago, something like that. And even back then, vetting a number of different programs, there were shortcomings to some of the other ones. And, for me, I wanted to make sure that we kept that visual reality so it looked real. I think clients want it as real as possible. And that kind of began our journey with Browzwear. It really coordinating a team that was a team created by the community of users that we would have internally. They're usually the best to vet a process because they're the ones, applying it on a daily basis. And so very quickly when we did some trials between all of the different programs, we understood the one that stood out at the time, and that was Browzwear.
So it's an understatement to say that Stars implements a lot of different technologies. Stars has been involved in implementing Silk, a supply chain transparency software. Yep. We've the VDP, digital weaving. We could go on and on about the various technologies that have been implemented at SDG. My question to you is, how do you know when the time is right to implement a specific technology, and how do you know where to look?
Yeah, I would say I'm a visionary by heart. I mean, I love technology. I love to implement it. I'm excited about new technology. And I would say that learning the right time to implement technology has been an evolution for us because, I'll get excited about the next shiny object and think, okay, this is going to save the world and save our process time and improve customer service. And I would say that, we have a big team here at Stars that has a community of people that help vet the right time to implement that technology. Sometimes it's after we go through that initial phase of looking at the technology at face value, it's it's then taking a smaller team, if you will, internally to be that beta team, to experiment with it, to see if that technology truly saves time and improves, customer satisfaction or speed in a process, on the outgoing side to production or client interface.
You know what you mentioned there about kind of having a small work group inside the company tells me that it's important to have company buy-in on, hey, yeah, we're willing to set aside some time to embrace this and see if it works for us.
Yeah, I think that's why I say I'm the kind of guy that loves technology, and we've learned by making those mistakes, I'll jump on that new technology and think it's absolutely the right thing for the organization. And frankly, we had not gotten full buy-in in the past on some projects, and I think that it didn't go well because of that. I think that's a definite learning curve, that when you're adopting new technology, that taking the time first, getting the buy-in, making sure that everyone understands, a person's vision on that particular technology, and make sure that they think it's as important of a evolution as I would, or that individual that would be bringing that technology to the table.
Yeah. Are there particular instances that you can share that maybe that buy-in didn't happen, and then the result of maybe not bringing the team to the table?
Yeah, I would say it's happened a number of times, because again, I think that there's a solution there, and by nature, human beings don't want change. So, having a major change in there requires an investment in the education, the understanding of a new technology, and then kind of focusing in and doing it. And I think we had a couple kind of communication systems internally. I won't name the names. They're great companies, just the internal team wasn't quite ready with all the other technologies that we were employing at the time. But we really, communication in any company is critical. Mm-hmm. And so having technology and communication, to me, is critical. If it speeds the process, improves the turnaround time, and documents some of that conversation. And so some of those things, I still believe will be important in the organization, but there's kind of a timing to that.
Right. It's so interesting to me, because Stars Design Group is known as this innovator. It says to me that the company is, at its ethos, at its foundation, is supported by a robust staff that's also innovators at heart. So I can see how...
Most of the time.
Yeah, but like you said...
We still have human beings involved. And
right.
So, it's about bandwidth, it's about timing, it's about, them really seeing the
benefit.
End goal. Yeah.
Yeah, and probably making sure to engage their feedback too. I think it's important that people get a chance to weigh in and say, this feels good or this doesn't feel good, especially if they're going to be using it all the time.
Sure, of course. That's super important.
I always remember one of the first business books I read, Who Moved My Cheese?
Yeah.
And that is all about how difficult it is for humans to make change. And so, that may or may not be of value to people who are looking for advice. But, as you've been through this process so many times with different technologies, does that transition get easier, or are you just kind of knowing that you've got to bear down for a certain amount of transitional pain?
It really is about focus. It's changing people's habits. They get used to one way of doing things, and through technology, there usually is a different way to do things. And I think that you cannot experiment. You have to jump in with both feet. There has to be a focused, intent effort, and only through time does that new process take hold and become natural.
Right.
It's not change is not natural for human beings. So
a lot of times, in addition to the people resource for implementing a new technology, the time, the energy, all of that, there's quite a bit of a financial investment, infrastructure to get in place. How do you fold that into the equation, and do you have any tips on advice on just making sure that that's really solid before you dive in?
Well, there's simple math. The ROI. if the process saves additional dollars for people or time that those people are investing and we're able to do things more quickly, you can calculate, in a very black and white business sense, whether that technology is going to save you time, effort, or money. I think there are intangibles certainly around that, like customer satisfaction. You might see an uptick in customer orders or success or happiness or whatever, but those are intangibles, I think. But certainly at the base, if a technology, the more expensive a technology is to implement, the more important it is to understand that ROI. And so, I'm the victim of being the early adopter. I want to be on a technology right away. Technology is that weird thing that when it comes out to begin with, generally is real expensive, and then over time it becomes less expensive as more adopters come on, as technology grows, things become less expensive. So the timing of implementation versus the ROI is important also.
Yeah, you mentioned early adoption.
Yes.
You've got to really think about, as a company, are you one of those? Are you an early adopter? Do you want to be the person that's helping to weigh in on the development of the technology?
The answer is yes.
Yes, because it's one of the benefits.
Well, at least for us. I think there's benefits and pitfalls being in the early adoption process or being on beta teams, which we've been on a few. You're having to work through the kinks of that system along with your tech partner. And so, it requires more time and effort. Generally, you might save on expense of that implementation because you are that beta team, But I would say that, most people that are in that tech space, most people that are employing technology within an organization, they probably spend a lot of time to make sure that the bugs are worked out of a system, that they're not the very first adopters, that they're a nice, healthy second or third level, so that system and the technology, has become, more mainlined, and there's less issues within systems when they roll out to begin with. There's always things that don't make sense over time, and therefore you have upgrades and updates to technology.
Adoption doesn't happen overnight, no matter if you're an early adopter or somebody that wants something that's more established. What would you say are good ways to address those early growing pains as you're bringing in this new resource?
Again, it comes down to communication. It comes down to dedication to the end goal. It comes into the buy-in for all particular groups, and consistency. Sometimes if you're weighing into a new technology, it begins slow and then becomes fast as you become more proficient. And if you get caught up in a day, you're like, I'm just going to go back to the old technology and then I'll get back to the new one. And I think that extends the time frame in which that new technology becomes well implemented in the company. So, being dedicated and focused and consistent is important. Being
a technology seeker, what are some things that you have your sights on for the future?
I think there are a number of things that are going on, certainly in the industry at a number of different levels. We've talked at length about the need for our industry to become more sustainable and eco-friendly. So I'm really focused on the innovation in biopolys, et cetera, recycled nylons, bio-nylons, things like that don't add harm to the planet. I think that those things are super important, and every day I do my best to kind of weigh in and take a look at where that evolution is going and really hope that we can get a mainstream solution that's affordable. That's one of those key things. I think transparency is really important too, and we're on that beta team with Silk, and I think that's going to take some time to get through, but having a transparency within your supply chain is critical. I think those are the things that I'm mainly looking toward, and new things come up all the time that are exciting, but I think main focuses are how to evolve those things within our organization.
Well, that is all really insightful. Thank you so much for sharing your insights. Do you have any other parting thoughts to share when it comes to either encouraging those who might be considering implementation or who are maybe going through the throes of it and kind of not sure whether or not to scratch it or persevere? Do you have any other thoughts to share?
Yeah, I think, tying it up in a bow from the very first thing I said is that our industry has never been more interrelated with technology, and that comes from manufacturing forward. So, and with all of the challenges that we see in the world, technology can really help, bridge the gap in the gaps that are forming. And so I urge people to do their due diligence, but continue to look toward technology to help solve things. We all do it in other ways. We all, have our, phones. We all have things that are extensions of information at our fingertips. And so those things took a while to integrate into society, but most of us can't imagine being without those today. And I think technology works that way in an organization also. Making the right decisions on technology, implementing them, making sure that the entire teams are bought on, will help speed things, make things more organized, help with efficiency in a world that is way less efficient than it's ever been before.
Yeah, you raise
in our industry.
An excellent point. You think about the evolution of the cell phone, and it really wasn't all that long ago, but yet it feels like we've always had that technology at our resource.
Sure.
And we're going to see the same evolution with many of these technologies that the industry is really exploring now. So
I agree.
Thank you for this conversation, and for everyone out there, do not forget to subscribe to stay apprised of upcoming episodes of Clothing Culture.